Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Together we'll chant Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verses 21 to 30.
नामहं विष्णुः ज्योतिषां रविरंशुमान् मरीचिर्मरुतामस्मि नक्षत्राणामहं शशि वेदानां सामवेदोऽस्मि देवानामस्मि वासवः इन्द्रियाणां मनश्चास्मि भूतानामस्मि चेतना रुद्राणां शङ्करश्चास्मि वित्तेषो यक्षरक्षसां वसूनां पावकश्चास्मि मेरुः शिखरिणामहम् पुरोधसां च मुख्यं मां विद्धि पार्थ बृहस्पतिम् सेनानीनामहं स्कन्दः सरसामस्मि सागरः महर्षीणां भृगुरहम् गिरामस्म्येकमक्षरम् यज्ञानां जपयज्ञोऽस्मि स्थावराणां हिमालयः अश्वत्थः सर्ववृक्षाणां देवर्षीणां च नारदः गन्धर्वाणां चित्ररथः सिद्धानां कपिलो मुनिः उच्चैश्रवसमश्वानां विद्धि माममृतोद्भवम् ऐरावतं गजेन्द्राणां नराणां च नराधिपम् आयुधानामहं वज्रं धेनूनामस्मि कामधुक् प्रजनश्चास्मि कन्दर्पः सर्पाणामस्मि वासुकिः अनन्तश्चास्मि नागानां वरुणो यादसामहम् पितॄणामर्यमा चास्मि यमः संयमतामहम् प्रह्लादश्चास्मि दैत्यानां कालः कलयतामहम् मृगाणां च मृगेन्द्रोऽहम् वैनतेयश्च पक्षिणाम्
So welcome back after your very long break. What have you been doing during the break? I hope you have been using this time to do a lot of reflection and have studied very hard. Studied very hard, or you just took a holiday and had fun? Both are okay. So now this will happen every few months, by the way, just letting you know. Every few months now, all the classes will stop and we will do a residential program. Now, why is that? Because the key to learning Vedanta is actually living over there and doing it like that. Because that makes you live that life instead of just appreciating that life. And because that is so critical, we are actually starting a whole university for that. So you can imagine how important that is. So why should we wait till we have a university and wait till we have the students who do that? All of us who are already dedicated, why don't we do that? We meet every few months and we live together and we do our sadhana together and give each other an impetus in doing it properly, so that we can go back home and then live that life too. You can speak to those who have attended, residential programs and understand what is the benefit that they have got out of it. And so we are going to be doing this every few months, and I do hope you all will take the benefit of it instead of treating it like, oh, every few months we are going to have a holiday. So I hope we will all be able to meet. And I know for some people it may be difficult every few months, but let's just do what we can. And then we'll no doubt be able to do something more, something better at a future time. But today, let us just do what we can. What is the use of saying I can't do X and I can't do Y? Do what you can. So that's it from my side in terms of what is news and views.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Yeah, Hari Om Amaranda.
Yeah, actually, this retreat we could not able to do. Just prior to that, we had 9 days holidays, but I cannot utilize it. But whatever is there, since we have 20 days as annual leave, I need to plan. So at least if you can get us 2 months before schedule, so that at least I try to manage 4-5 days to get further. At least I want to be there for the next our treatment.
Okay, wonderful, Amarinder. We need somebody who will organize the next one. Who wants to volunteer to be the organizer? Every time poor Bharti doesn't have to be given by default. Everybody can organize, right? So then each one understands what is involved in it. And you know how the whole process has to take place. We have to create a community of people who are karma yogis. Karma yogis means people who serve with the intent of self-development. So when we do it like that, then we'll see the amazing difference we make to our lives. And when we have made the difference to our lives, then we will be able to radiate that difference to everyone else. And we should see the benefits of that to our community, I mean, wherever we stay. So anyone who would like to organize the next one, and you already have one person ready to join, so please give him the dates, fix some date and fix a venue, and let's go. So if you'd like to volunteer to organize it, please get in touch with me or Bharat, whoever's number you have. Okay, so now we have been studying about the all-pervading nature of the Lord. Now we all know this. We know that the Lord has to be all-pervading. Why do we know that the Lord has to be all-pervading? How do we know this?
Because millions of operations are going on. We are not
Millions of operations are going on. Okay. What else? How do you know he has to be all-pervading? Maybe he's not all-pervading, but still millions of operations can go on. How do you know he's all-pervading?
because we can't see, can't feel.
Okay, we can't see air, but air is not all-pervading. If you go to Mars, there's no air.
Because it is everywhere.
All-pervading means it is everywhere. So how do you know it is everywhere?
Because it's the source of everything.
Okay, the seed is the source of the tree, but that doesn't mean the seed is everywhere.
Is the end level of everything?
Okay, the electricity is the end level of electrical gadgets.
He is end level of everything.
Okay, so then you're talking about things which are enlivened, right? So on Mars, there is nothing enlivened. So why would he be there? Or in the vastness of space where there is nothing in between. You say, okay, the movement of, let us say, Mars is because of him. But then in the vastness of space, okay, yeah, correct, Asha. You have to assume, you have to make a fundamental assumption here. Correct, Asha. You make a fundamental assumption that that Lord or that reality, however you choose to refer to it, is infinite. This is a fundamental assumption that we need to make in this path. Okay, it is a, what do they say? It is a truth that we hold self-evident. That if there is reality, that reality has to be everywhere. So this is a fundamental thing. So suppose you say that the reality, if there is reality, reality will be infinite, because you cannot put a boundary on it, right? You can't say it is finite in some way. So if it be true that it be infinite, then it has to be everywhere. Because the moment you say it is not somewhere, you curtail its infinitude. Because it's not infinite there, wherever you claim it is not. So that is why God has to be all-pervading. If God has to be all-pervading, then the other characteristic that derives from it is that God has to be formless. Because what does form mean? Form means this body has a form. Why does it have a form? Because it is here and not there. The moment I say it is everywhere, I have removed a boundary. And there can be no form unless there is boundary. It is the boundary that gives the form. So if I remove the boundary, form is impossible. It's just not possible. So anything infinite has to be all-pervading. Anything all-pervading has to be without form. Okay, so this is natural derivations that come from these things. Now, the important thing for us to understand is that the Lord, by very definition, has to be formless. But what is Arjuna asking for? He said, show me your form. Show me your various forms, he's saying. So the Lord is replying. He's saying, okay, I'm going to tell you. I am Adityanam Vishnu. Among the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Jyotisham, Ravyam Shaman. Amongst all the luminaries, I am the sun. So he's going on saying this. You say, how on earth is that possible? Because that's not correct. That's not true. The Lord is formless. In fact, Arjuna doesn't understand it with this chapter. So in the next chapter, he actually shows a form. He says, okay, look at me now. I have this form. And then he tries to show the whole world in that form. Now, so this is very surprising and very, why? What's the need for this form? The need for all of this arises is that though it is true that the reality is infinite, it is all pervading, it is formless, though that is true, the fact of the matter is our intellect does not always reach up to that point. Even if we have some sort of intellectual comprehension of it, our mind doesn't reach up to it. So we have no inspiration out of it. So as a stepping stone, until we reached a maturity to understand it is everywhere, he goes step by step. Is very systematic in how he proceeds. He said, okay, think of the best of everything. I am there. When you start thinking like that, the best of everything, so you say, the best nagger in the world is my spouse. Then God is there. The most irritable person I've ever met is that fellow there. God is there. So wherever you see the best, the noblest, the greatest, the highest of anything, you draws to your attention that I am there. I am amongst actors, Thalaivar, his name, Thalaivar, right? Whenever you see the best of that, say amongst people who are so sensitive and cannot bear to hear anything, I am myself. Can't hear anybody saying anything about me. Now, big tamasha is created in this world because somebody says something and then somebody else says something and then big fight everybody has. Nobody's willing to just say, okay, let everybody have their own opinions in life. Main kya karu? But in each thing, what is this? Amongst all court cases, I am Johnny Depp's defamation case. Because everybody seems to want to know about what happened to Johnny Depp. You heard the joke about it, right? He's the only man in history who's won an argument against a woman. So amongst the most, you all have heard of Johnny Depp, right? And his famous case. The fact that we are speaking about it must be quite famous. It came to my cognition also. Amongst everything, I am the best, the highest, the noblest. Now, why the best, highest, noblest? I am everything is good enough. No? Why best, highest, noblest?
To inspire the mind.
Inspire the mind. It is, the bigger something is, the more dramatic something is, the more it draws our mind. draws our mind when the mind is young, when the mind is not its full matured state. Something very dramatic draws its attention. If it's as the mind subtilizes, even very subtle things the mind will pick up. But while it is not that subtle, it needs some drama. You need the hero to be the type of person who can just deal with anything, who can hold bullets in his teeth. So when the mind is younger, let us say, it loves this drama. So if you have one person chanting a mantra, that's not enough. You have to collect 50,000 people chanting the mantra, then you feel inspired with that mantra. The more drama you create, the more the mind can get involved. So, one of the most frequent questions I'm asked, about classes, what do you think is one of the most frequent questions? Even you must be asked that question. What is the most frequent question person asks about the class? They don't ask what you studied. They don't ask you what have you gained from this study. What do they ask you?
How many people come?
How many people attend? The single most important thing in their life. How many people attend? Like, the quality of the class is known by how many people attend. Because if you can say 10,000 people attend this, wow, something great is happening. Say 5 people attend, the useless thing is happening. Actually, the truth is just the opposite. But the more drama, the more the mind is uplifted by it. Otherwise, it can't be uplifted, unfortunately. We are talking about Turiya, and we need to have faith, but there is evidence like Hindu put a deity to every action to make it easier to move into sattvic life. We need to have faith means we don't. Okay, faith, you can use that word, but if you claim that there is a reality, then that reality has to be infinite. Either you say there is no reality, that's one way of doing it. But if you claim that there is a reality, then that reality has to be infinite. Nobody has a debate on whether God is infinite or not. Everybody agrees to that. And then if you claim infinity, then all these things must necessarily follow. So it is more something that you have thought out than that you have faith. And the Hindu deities are, yes, a way of making people remember that. But here what he's talking about is how the best, the noblest, the greatest. He'll say, even in bad things. It's like saying, even in diseases, I am COVID. He would put that if he was there today. Or in cruelty, I'm the abattoir. In bad smells, then I am the city dump. So the worst things also, the best or the worst also, I am there. And then the mind can remember that because that drama has been created around it. So that's why he's trying to lift our mind up to understand that the reality has to be everywhere. No. So Rajneesh saying, your usage of word assumption has come as a surprise on the presence of reality. Yes, Rajneesh, philosophy is always surprising. You have to say that this is an assumption you make because you cannot state it unless you're a realized soul. You don't know until you've achieved that enlightenment. There is no point making statements about it. But yes, if you make the assumption And this is an assumption that nobody has denied. No religion on the surface of this earth that so far I have come across has denied the infinitude of God. Some people have denied God. That's a different thing. So if you make an assumption that there is a reality, if you take that assumption, some people say, no, we don't. In which case, they're out of this deal. Why would they do any sadhana? They're out of the deal. But those who make the assumption that there has to be a reality will then accept it as infinite. And then once you accept it as infinite, the other things just follow. Sudha, the person who brings out the worst in us also, he's there, you mean to say. Lord is there for our evolution. Yes, yes, of course. Very much so. Sudha. But he who is able to bring, amongst the people who are able to bring out the worst from me, this chap is me, is what the Lord says. But when we say that, we must realize that people can bring out from me only
What is in me?
there in me? What is present in me?
correct. If it's not in me, how can you bring it out?
Yes, these are the triggers, Janki ji.
They are. And we are blessed to have these triggers because now we know. We know what is there and we can clean it. And we know that just as much as these are there in us, they are there in everyone else. It is not that everybody is some kind of saint or, no. And just as much as our negativity has hurt us, so too is other people's negativity hurting them. So it's just understanding our own humanity. For as much as negativity we have, any of us have, we will pay for it. So we will focus on removing it. And we will be charitable to those who have it. Because they require our charity. Isn't it? When we are behaving badly, we want other people to be understanding towards the way we are behaving. Then when other people are behaving badly, should we not be understanding? That doesn't mean we condone it. That doesn't mean we say, okay, this is good behavior. No, it is bad behavior. But I will not hate you for this behavior. If we can take the stance in our life, we will be people, worthy of being looked up to. But we can take the stance only once we found out how much negativity there is. And who is helping me find that negativity? This person. So I've got gratitude. Change our perspective on things. Our whole life changes. So when we are able to genuinely start seeing the Lord in all his manifestations, we're able to appreciate that manifestation. We see God there. In Mumbai, most people are punctual most of the time. Or at least that late means they'll be reached by 10-15 minutes. When I used to live in Delhi, there was a music teacher who used to come to our house, excellent in music and very good teacher also. But if he told you he's coming at 5 o'clock on Saturday, he will arrive at 10 o'clock on Monday. His concept of time was as fluid as his music. So in terms of saying, amongst all the people who I have seen unpunctual, he is the Lord. Amazing. How can you be this late? Like 36 hours late to 2 or 20 years, amazing ability. If I tried to be that late, I would get most agitated about it. He's quite happy with it. Amazing. So, if we can see in the big expressions of life, hopefully we will start seeing in the little expressions of life. This is where we have to reach eventually. At least in the big mighty, mighty things we have to see. Until then, we can see it in all things. I can sense the presence of the Lord in the breath I take. I can sense the presence of the Lord in the breeze that touches me. I can sense the presence of the Lord when any sound enters my ear. I realize that all these things that I go through just remind me of Him. It's all you can see. But that stage comes when first you can do it at the big level, see it in the big things, and then learn to see it in the small things. Okay? So that's what he has been showing. He's showing his massive form. Massive in the sense he's showing it in all the drama. And in the hope that eventually we will start seeing it in the small stuff. We were doing verse 24, right?
Yes, now 25.
So among household priests, so Partha, I am Brihaspati. Brihaspati means I am the Brihaspati is the priest of the gods. So amongst all the pujaris who come to our house, all the panditjis who come to our house, I am Brihaspati. The pujari goes to Indra's house. So he's supposed to be the most intelligent person, the most smart. In fact, we say that, right? If somebody is acting a little over smart, we'll say, what do you think you are, Brihaspati? So, because he represents wisdom and knowledge. Of generals and Skanda. Skanda we studied, right, last time, the story of Subramanya. So he's got 6 faces, which represents the 5 senses and the mind. And he has got that snake, the ego. I don't know if you know that he rides the peacock. Why is he shown riding the peacock? Because the peacock is blue and the peacock is vain. So it is the vanity of being the self. I mean, proud. It's a symbolic way of saying proud of being the self. You're proud of who you are, not of who you are not. If you're proud of your wealth, you're proud of something that you are not. If you're proud of your intelligence, then you're proud of something that you are not. If you're proud of your beauty, then you're proud of something you're not. If you're proud of how loving you are, how evolved you are, then you're proud of something that you are not. So true pride is, I am proud that I am the self. This is a poetical way of saying it. I see myself as the self, so therefore I will see you as the self. So my pride is of the self, not of the body, mind, intellect. And he said to hold a spear, kill every negativity that comes. You'll see most of the gods holding all these weapons of destruction. So why do they have all these weapons of destruction? You'd imagine them to be so sweet and nice and, not fighting with anyone. But every one of them has got some weapon in their hand. Even Rama in a family portrait also, he carries his bow. Why do you carry you're standing with your wife? Why do you need your bow with you? Is she doing anything to you? No, even with wife, bow in hand. All the time they're carrying a bow or some weapon they have. Why? It shows the alertness to kill the negativity. It's like ruthless as far as our negativity is concerned. Ruthless as far as removing the vasanas are concerned. So of generals, I'm Skanda. Skanda led Subramanya or Shanmukha, whatever you know him by, led the war effort against the demon Tarakasura. So what does that tell you? All these qualities, which is indicated by what he wears and his vehicle and all, are the qualities of leadership. If you wish to be a leader, then you'll never be. But if you inculcate all these qualities, you will be pushed into a leadership role, whether you like it or not. People will come to you. You don't have to create anything. They will come themselves. So we all want to be leaders. We all want to be the top gun. We all want to be people that people look up to. But there's only one way of actually doing that. Inculcate all the qualities that he has spoken about. So of generals, I am Skanda, means of all the leaders, I am Subramanya. All those who've led us into war, I am Subramanya. Because of that. Sorry? So if we inculcate that, we become Skanda, the best leader. Of lakes, Sarasam, Sagarasmi, Aham Sagarasmi Sarasam, among the water bodies, among lakes. I am the ocean, obviously. No, the ocean is the biggest of all the lakes. So you can take which is like a buffet here spread before us. You take whichever one inspires you. You don't have to take them all. You take the one that inspires you, stay with it, and grow with it. All right, so verse 25. Maharshinam Prabhuraham Giramasmekamaksharam Yajnanam Japayajnusmi Stavaranam Himalayaha Maharshinam Bhruguraham Giramasmekamaksharam Yajnanam Japayajnusmi Stavaranam Himalayaha. For all those who are in the Sanskrit class, your Saptami Vibhakti is like getting Shashti Vibhakti is getting done very well. Maharshinam, among the Maharshis, of the Maharshis. Bhriguraham. I am Bhrigu among the sages. You know, there are Maharshis, the great sages. So there were 10 great sages, and Bhrigu is considered to be the greatest of them all. Now, why is Bhrigu the greatest of them all? So there is a story around it. This whole chapter is just stories. You know the story of why Bhrigu is considered to be the greatest of them all? Anyone's familiar with the story? The story goes that there was a fight, a discussion on amongst the three gods, who is the greatest? Is Brahma greatest, or Shiva greatest, or Vishnu greatest? Who is the greatest? So the story goes that he goes and kicks him. Man, who's the greatest? And the story is that Vishnu worshipped the foot that kicked him. And then Bhrigu declared Vishnu was the greatest. So I suppose he is the greatest because A, he was chosen to judge between the gods who is the greatest. And 2, he could come up with a test that could tell us which is the greatest. So he is supposed to be the greatest. So why is this greatest? Greatness is measured by the capacity of sacrifice. How much can you sacrifice? number one. And how much can you sacrifice without anyone knowing that you have sacrificed? There are times we will do things for people, but then we want the acknowledgement for it. That means her doing was not complete, let us say. So what is greatness? It's capacity to just sacrifice. You have sacrificed, and you have sacrificed, and you have sacrificed, and nobody knows about it. Nobody knows about it. And one thing will happen. What will happen? What will happen? What happened? Yes, Kalyan, very good. Nobody knows, but you have purified yourself. You have removed your negativity. You have removed your all the nonsense that keeps us so unhappy and so distracted in life. This whole capacity to be a great person, not to want to be called a great person, to be a great person, to be somebody worthy of being called human. That is some commitment from ourselves to ourselves. And we are currently in one of the very few things in this world that will actually help us make and keep that commitment. And if we don't treat it as the most important thing, well, we won't treat it as the most important thing. What can anyone say? So, amongst the great sages, I am Bhrigu. Means amongst humanity, the highest are the sages. Amongst the sages means the sattvic people. Among the sages, the highest are the 10 great sages. And amongst those 10 greatest of humanity, I am Bhrigu. So you can imagine what is the gradation he has given. Of speech, I am the monosyllable. Ekam aksharam. I am that ekam aksharam, one syllable. What is that one syllable? Om. Om is considered to be the highest, the greatest, the best syllable. So among Giram means amongst of language, I am that one syllable. What's so great about Om is that, firstly, according to Ramadji, that's a natural syllable. But it has the advantages of both articulate as well as inarticulate speech. In terms of articulate speech, you can give an explanation of what is Om. Ma is the entire sound phenomenon. I mean, the base of your throat is the sound and ma, end of the story. Om, end of story means lip shut, no? So from the base to the end, the entire sound phenomenon is covered in the chant of the word Om. So it's considered to have the whole of language in it. You can also take Ma as the 3 states of consciousness. So there can be an explanation to Om. But besides the explanation, it also has the advantages of inarticulate speech. What is inarticulate? Inarticulate means you don't need to study it to know it. You understand the sound. Like suppose I start crying, boo, boo, boo. You will know what I'm doing. You don't need teaching. Suppose, I don't know, some Russian joins our class and is not English speaking, or I don't know, South American who's not English speaking joins our class, they won't know what is going on. But suppose now I smile, then they know that I'm happy. But as I'm crying, then they know that I'm unhappy. Okay, so this is the inarticulate, like laughing, then it's happy. And if I'm crying, then it's unhappy. And everybody knows that, a child will know that. So Om has that benefit. The sound itself is very soothing to the ears of living beings, even animals, everybody. It's soothing to everyone. That's why it's used a lot as the representation of God. So of speech, I am the monosyllable. The monosyllable, everybody understands, is Om. Of yagnas, I am japa yagna. This is a little more difficult for us to understand. So, what is the spiritual path? The spiritual path is basically the path of substitution. What happens in the spiritual path? We are all full of desires. We want so many things and all that. So what do we do with this? We try and get higher desires. When we get higher desires, the lower desires wane away. This is the entire path. So once you've got the higher desires, now what do? Now you take up still higher desires. And then what do? You take up still higher desires. Then what do? You go on repeating this process until you come to the highest desire, which is the desire for the self, for God, for reality, for truth, whatever in the world you want to call it. Allah, Father in heaven, Brahman, Atman, Vishnu, Shiva, Ahura Mazda, whatever you want to call it. That, to attain that, becomes the only desire in the person's mind. Now, the whole path was a path of substitution. Now you've come to the highest desire. Now what? What do you want to substitute with? The only way we know of losing a desire is, that is the only way of losing a desire. There's no other way to do this. What's the only way?
By gaining a higher one?
Yes, correct. By gaining a higher one. There is no other way to do this. You cannot pick out your desires and throw them in the bin. Even if you don't want the desire, it is sticking to you. It is like Fevicol. You cannot leave it only, it is sticking. So you say, I don't want this desire. It's troubling me. I want to throw it away. Can't throw it away. What can you do? You can take up a higher desire and the lower one wanes. So now you did that, you did that, you did that. You've come to the highest desire. You now want enlightenment, God realization. Now what will you do? You can't take up a higher desire because you've reached the higher desire. And yet if you have a desire, you cannot attain enlightenment. Isn't it? If you have one desire also, you cannot be enlightened. So if you have a desire for enlightenment, then you cannot be enlightened. Now what do you do here? At this stage, you have to change your practice. The changed practice is known as Japa Yagna. Why Japa Yagna? What is Yagna? Yagna is our capacity to sacrifice for something higher in life. The Havan Kund, the Yagna Kund, everyone goes and puts in their ahuti. What do we do in our early stages of the journey? We go and put in our effort into the Yagna, into the cooperative endeavor, and then that whole field rises, right? And then we get the blessings of the fire god. So this is how we begin our journey. We sustain our journey also through the same thing. And then as you keep growing up, you keep burning out the lower tendencies and the higher tendencies, rise and sort of bless us. And then you keep on, go on until all the fuel is burnt, basically. Now you've come to the highest desire. How did you get here? With Yagna. right? Sacrifice. What did you sacrifice? Your lower desires. What have you sacrificed them for?
A higher desire.
Correct. For the higher desire. So your whole journey was a journey of sacrifice, right? You sacrificed your lower for the higher, sacrifice the lower for the higher. Now you have come to the highest. Now what are you going to sacrifice to? Because you come to the highest desire. So what you do now is change the practice from yajna to japa yajna. What is japa yajna? Japa yajna is when you start chanting the name of the Lord, right? So you, or name or whatever symbol you wish to use. You use the word symbol, right? So all religions have that, right? They all have the rosary and the beads. They do the beads. Everybody has that. So you start taking up that way. Take the name of the Lord, or whatever you say. Om, Om, Om. Now, what happens? There is sound, Om, and there is silence. Then there is sound, there is silence. This is called japa yajna, right? Om, Om, Om. Then slowly what you start doing is do Om, Om, Om. Further the gaps, increase the silence. Om, Om, Om. You increase the gaps. And slowly, slowly, you allow the chant of Om to fade into silence. It just fades away. So that last thought gets dissolved, as it were, into the silence which is that ultimate truth. So this is your last sacrifice, where you give up the desire for God into that silence. That is why it is known as japa yajna. It's your last sacrifice. That last sacrifice is the sacrifice of the last thought. So that's what he's saying. Amongst all the sacrifices, amongst all the yajnas, I am japa yajna, because it's the ultimate and last sacrifice that a human being is capable of making. What happens when you're enlightened? You've given everything up. You've given up every association with the body, mind, and intellect. And what is it you've given up? Your last desire. So the association itself has been broken, disassociated. Like the coconut put in the sun. You dry a coconut in the sun, then the fleshy part, that inside thing, the white pure thing inside, separates from the outside thing. So that white pure thing inside ourselves, the self, separates from the body, mind, and intellect. The process is meditation or japa yajna. So giving up that last desire for realization is the highest form of yajna. So he says, among yajnas, I am japa yajna. And what is my last sacrifice? It is the sacrifice of my ignorance. What am I going to gain out of it? It's realization. Given up my ignorance, fully sacrificed it. So amongst the yajnas, I am japa yajna.
A question.
Yeah, Omkar?
I'm not sure if I'm misquoting Swamiji, but I remember hearing a statement that chanting does nothing more than strengthen the muscles of your throat. I mean, in which context did he say this?
In the context of doing it prematurely. People are doing it now. What are you meditating for now? All the negativity is inside. How are you going to disassociate with the thought of the self? What is the purpose of meditation is disassociation with the thought of God. That is the purpose of meditation. Now, this is not our stage in the sadhana. At this stage, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to associate with the thought of God, right? So it is like pointless. Why are you doing it now? Now you've got to associate. So you can sing the name of the Lord loudly. You see the Hare Krishna movement. They go around singing all the time and all. Hopefully, while their mouths are singing, their mind is also there, or they carry that thing and they go on saying Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They keep saying. I mean, you go on doing it like that, it's unlikely your mind is there, because the mind can't sustain the thought. So first, with karma, you reduce the bulk of desires. That's the first step. Let the bulk of desires come down. Then you do whatever your dharana, then you will do your dhyana, and then you will reach samadhi. Now you start sitting here like this. Kuch hone wala hai kya? Every time you don't want to do some cooking at home, you sit down in meditation. You don't want to go to work, you sit down in meditation. नहीं मैं काम को नहीं जा सकता, मुझे meditation करना है. Is that what it's meant for? So you have quoted him correctly. Yes, he does say that, but he says that about premature meditation, which not only does not help, but often hinders the path in pretty dramatic ways.
So did he mean meditation and just chanting like Sri Krishna Sharanam Mama, and people do those malas to mean the same thing?
Yeah, sort of, because they think they are meditating, but they either are not, which is good, or if they really are, it's bad. Because meditation is the highest effort a human being can put in. So we ought not to put that effort until we are prepared for it. So yeah, so not to meditate until you have cleansed your personality quite a lot. Doesn't mean only when you have the last thought you need to meditate, but your personality has to be extremely cleansed before you can take up these things. Otherwise, the backlash of it is horrible. It's really horrible. And the worst result of it usually is the person's mind cracks. You look at people who have been meditating and seriously meditating consistently and prematurely, you will find them very difficult to be with. People will run away from them because, so it's an extremely dangerous thing to do. And that's why he makes fun of it. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Stavaranam, amongst those who are stapit, who are not moving. Aham Himalaya. I am Himalaya. Aham asmi Himalaya. Aham Himalaya asmi. Imagine if the Himalayas got up and went for a walk. So if Himalayas got up and went for a walk, you know what will happen? All Prithvi will shake. So amongst things that don't move, I am Himalaya. But otherwise, everything around here is moving, right? And because it is so steady and established, the Himalaya is considered in this culture as a peak of knowledge, as a symbol of knowledge. So, you say, if you want to say, I want to go to it's what anybody says, I want to go and get Vedanta knowledge. Their first thought is, I'm going to the Himalayas. Always, Himalayas is this pratik of knowledge. No shit. If we would resist getting physically hijacked, why do we allow others to hijack our mind? Is this what you mean? No, No, I didn't mean that. What I meant is that if we meditate prematurely, our minds will crack. It doesn't mean somebody else has hijacked it, but I can do this to myself as well.
If I may ask, what I'm saying is that this is how you start your journey to control your senses.
Which journey?
Journey towards real self-realization.
But what is the thing you're referring to as the starting point?
I'm referring to the present state I am. Wherever I am is the best place to reach Brahman.
Yeah. You're saying this is what you do to start your journey. So this is a pronoun for what?
This is a program to get more and more sattvic till you reach the one desire.
No, Sheil, my question is, what is the word this standing for?
Excuse me?
What is the word? You said this is the program to get more sattvic. So what is the this?
Dropping desires. But to drop desires, first you got to control your mind, your anger, your ego, your 7 sins. You got to control that.
No, this will not work as a methodology. This is what should happen. The methodology is different. The methodology is that you do your karma, bhakti, and jnana. The consequence of it is that you will be more in control of your personality. You cannot go to control the mind. The mind will become controlled when you do your karma, bhakti, jnana. If you try to control your mind like that, it will rebel so much that the very thing that you're trying to control will become like a major rakshasa in your life.
I got it. Thank you.
So amongst immovables, I am Himalaya. All right. So that's it for today. Hari Om.